You'll never be anything but a loser. His wife's final words echoed as she tossed him $1 million like charity and left him for a richer man. For 3 years, Ian Pye was known as a fraud, a freeloader, the city's most pathetic joke. But at the wedding of the century, as the powerful heir of the Yi family stood at the altar with Xinjiang's most sought-after CEO, Stella Su, the bride stunned the world. "Do you take this man to be your husband?" "I do not," she declared, her eyes finding the one man everyone despised. She held up a marriage certificate for all to see. "Because he is my husband." They thought they had cast aside trash. They didn't know they had scorned a hidden dragon, the secret master of an ancient sect with the power to make titans kneel and fortunes turn. Now, with the city's queen by his side and a legacy of unimaginable power in his hands, his story of revenge has just begun. Chapter 1. Xinjiang City. The summer afternoon air was heavy and thick. The heavy glass doors of City Hall closed behind him, sealing away the noise within. Ian Pye's fingertips traced the edge of the crimson divorce certificate. Its new cover was almost sharp to the touch, just like the feeling in his heart. 3 years of marriage, now reduced to a cold, formal document. "Don't blame me." Jade Sheen's voice was just as he remembered it, cool and distant, as if an impassable chasm lay between them. "We've grown too far apart. Forcing this any longer is meaningless." Ian looked up at the woman he had once loved so deeply. Her makeup was flawless, her business suit impeccably tailored, radiating the confidence of a successful career woman. He let out a self-deprecating laugh, a bitter taste spreading through him. "Right? You got busier and busier, so busy that our home became nothing more than a hotel to you." A flicker of disdain crossed Jade's eyes, the way one might look at an old, unwanted piece of furniture. "Ian, you have to admit, the gap between us is just too wide. I'm tearing my hair out every day over the company's growth, and you? You do nothing all day but set up that pathetic little stall under the bridge, scamming old folks." "I set up that stall because you never let me get involved in the company's business, didn't I?" Ian spread his hands, his tone thick with suppressed frustration. It wasn't that he didn't want to achieve something, but in her eyes, the metaphysical skills he inherited from his master were nothing more than the cheap tricks of a charlatan. "But do you know what people say about me? They say that I, Jade Sheen, married a fraud for a husband." A hint of emotion finally broke through her composure, the fury of someone whose reputation had been tarnished. Ian suddenly smiled, a sense of release washing over him. The laugh was soft, but it felt like a needle popping the illusory bubble of the past 3 years. "So, I've been an embarrassment to you. Don't worry, that won't happen anymore." Jade seemed unwilling to continue the argument. She pulled a bank card from her designer handbag. "There's $1 million on this card. Take it and start a proper business. Stop messing around with that little stall of yours. If you keep this up, you'll never be anything but a loser." Loser. The word was like an ice pick dipped in poison, stabbing deep into Ian's heart. He remembered 3 years ago, when his master had defied fate to change the Qin family's fortune, exhausting his own life force in the process. That sacrifice had bought the Qin family 3 years of prosperity and had sealed his marriage to Jade. If he hadn't been secretly resolving their misfortunes all this time, would Jade Qin be enjoying her success today? And yet, in the eyes of the wife he had given everything to protect, he was, in the end, just a loser. He didn't take the card, nor did he look at the car keys she also offered. "You don't need to worry about my affairs, Ms. Qin." He turned, taking a resolute step away. Just then, the screech of tires shattered the street's quiet. A convoy of black luxury cars sped to a halt by the curb. Doors opened in unison as 24 bodyguards in black suits stood at attention, respectfully opening the door of a Maybach. A young man in a sharp suit, holding a large bouquet of vibrant blue roses, walked gracefully over to Jade. "Jade, congratulations. You're finally free again." It was Brandon Hua, second son of the Hua family, one of the 5 great families of Xinjiang. Ian's feet felt rooted to the spot. His heart clenched as if squeezed by an invisible hand, a dull ache spreading through his chest. He finally understood. The late nights, she never came home, the mysterious bouquets that appeared in her office, it all made sense now. Jade accepted the flowers with a practiced ease, as if they had rehearsed the moment 1,000 times. She even tried to press the bank card into Ian's hand again, but he coldly dodged her. "I told you, I, Ian Pye, don't need to live on anyone's charity." Well, if it isn't our famous freeloader of Xinjiang." Brandon's mocking voice came from behind. "Master Pye, why don't you divine your own future? See how it looks." Ian turned slowly, his gaze as sharp as a blade, locking onto the space between Brandon's eyebrows. A playful smirk touched his lips. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. "My future is bright, no need for your concern. But I can offer you a free reading." He paused, enunciating each word. "There's a darkness over your brow. Within 3 days, you will face a bloody disaster." Brandon erupted in fury. Several bodyguards immediately surrounded Ian, their knuckles cracking. "Kid, you dare curse Mr. Hua." "Stop." Jade interjected. "Brandon, just let him go." Brandon waved them off with a sneer. Fine. For you, Jade. I'll let him off the hook today. Ian, aren't you going to thank Mr. Hua? Thank him. Ian's gaze shot past Brandon, fixing on Jade. Thank him for cheating with my wife. Jade's face went pale. Brandon, however, laughed triumphantly, wrapping his arm around her shoulder. That's right. I am pursuing Jade. If it weren't for you 3 years ago, she would have been my woman long ago. Now, you can get lost. Ian stared at Jade. She lowered her head in silence, not offering a single word of defense. In that suffocating silence, the last shred of lingering affection in his heart froze solid, then shattered into dust. I wish you both happiness. He squeezed the words through his teeth and turned to leave. Just then, a fiery red Ferrari glided to a stop beside him like a silent flame. The door opened, and a stunningly beautiful woman with a graceful figure emerged. Her long, wine-red hair flowed in the wind, but her exquisite face was etched with an obvious urgency. She walked briskly to Ian, her eyes falling on the divorce certificate in his hand. You just got divorced? Before Ian could answer, she glanced at Jade and Brandon nearby and did something astonishing. She reached out her slender hand, looped her arm through his, and said in a tone that brooked no argument, You're coming with me. Caught off guard, Ian found himself being dragged, in a daze, back through the doors of City Hall. We're getting married. Standing at the marriage registration window, the woman deftly produced household registers, IDs, and even 2 letters of introduction from her purse, speaking to the bewildered clerk. Ian was completely stunned. What was happening? Grabbing a random person off the street to get married? She even had letters of introduction ready? He felt like he was trapped in some absurd dream. What are you waiting for? She found another man to humiliate you. Are you just going to take it? The woman's voice urged in his ear, laced with a hint of temptation. Take it? Ian thought of Jade's disdainful eyes, of Brandon's smug face. 3 years of suppressed resentment and indignation rushed to his head. He gritted his teeth, his mind roaring. Jade Sheen, you treated me like dirt, and I can cast you aside just as easily. He slammed his own ID and household register onto the counter, shouting at the clerk, I'll marry her. Half an hour later, Ian stood outside City Hall with a divorce certificate in his left hand and a marriage certificate in his right, feeling like the entire world had turned unreal. He looked down at the certificate and saw the legendary name printed there, Stella Su, CEO of the Su Group, the most celebrated and sought-after woman in all of Xinjiang. Stella, looking thoroughly satisfied, linked her arm in his. Like a victorious queen, she walked over to the dumbfounded Jade and Brandon. She held up the little red booklet, her voice crisp and proud. Hello, ex-wife. From now on, your ex-husband is my husband. And please remember, now that you're divorced, don't come bothering him again. Jade looked as if she had been struck by lightning, her face ashen. The man she had tossed aside like trash had been picked up and treasured by someone like Stella Su before he even hit the ground. It was the most resounding slap in the face, mocking her for her blindness. Her lips trembled. Ian, so she was waiting here all along. Ian shot back coldly. Wasn't he waiting for you too? A classic double standard, wouldn't you say? Before Jade could say another word, Stella was already leading Ian to the Ferrari. She pressed the keys into his hand, her voice so gentle it could melt steel. Darling, you drive. Let's go home. The scene was like acid to Jade's heart. In 3 years of marriage, if Ian so much as touched her car, she'd have it detailed 3 times. But now, after driving for a while under the envious stares of countless passers-by, Ian pulled the Ferrari over. Miss Su, I've played my part in your little drama. Thank you. But Stella grabbed his arm, her eyes shimmering. A drama? Who told you this was a drama? You're my husband now. You're my man. Without another word, she dragged him on a complete makeover. From his hairstyle to his clothes, he was transformed from the inside out. When Ian saw the strange yet familiar man in the mirror, dressed in a perfectly tailored designer suit, even he was stunned. Stella nodded in satisfaction, whispering in his ear, Now, let's go to your former mother-in-law's house and get your things. I'd like to see who dares to give my man a hard time. At the Chin family villa, his ex-mother-in-law, Jinna Yin, and ex-brother-in-law, Kevin Chin, were celebrating Ian's departure. When Ian appeared at the door, they both froze, thinking they were seeing things. What are you doing back here? Jinna snapped back to her senses, her face hardening. I'm here to get my things, Ian said flatly. Kevin kicked a worn-out wooden box from the corner over to Ian, then planted his foot on it, his face full of scorn. All your junk is right here. You want it. First, give back the $1 million you took from my sister. I didn't take your money. Didn't take it? Then where'd you get the money for those clothes? Stop pretending. Kevin jabbed a finger at Ian's chest, aggressive and loud. Just then, a cool, powerful female voice drifted from the doorway, tinged with a lazy smile. I bought his clothes, and I had his hair done. Is there a problem? The mother and son turned in shock to see Stella leaning against the doorframe. She walked in gracefully, naturally linking her arm with Ian's and giving them a devastatingly beautiful smile. But let me correct you. I'm not his friend. Her gaze swept over their stunned faces, finally settling on Jinna Yin. She spoke each word with deliberate clarity. I'm his current wife. Chapter 2. Stella Sue's words were like a stone dropped into a stagnant pond, sending shockwaves through the minds of the mother and son. Kevin Sheen's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. He had seen countless beautiful women, and his own sister, Jade, was a stunner, but Stella was beautiful on a whole other level, like a magnificent illusion that made him forget to breathe. Jenna Yin was completely thrown by the sudden turn of events. It took her a moment to find her voice. She sized up this woman whose powerful aura was almost suffocating and asked dryly, Who are you? Stella Sue, Ian Pai's current wife. Stella's reply was casual, but each word landed like a hammer blow. Jenna instantly exploded, her shrill voice cutting through the quiet of the villa. Well, Ian Pai, I really underestimated you. The moment you divorce my daughter, you go and hook up with this little vixen. You have no other skills, but you're certainly a master at sweet-talking women. She felt as if her worthless ex-son-in-law had just stomped all over her family's reputation, and rage consumed her. Stella's eyes turned icy, her voice frosting over. Watch your mouth. If it weren't for the fact that you're his ex-mother-in-law, believe me, I would slap you. Jenna had never been threatened like this before. Accustomed to being the undisputed matriarch of her household, she was goaded into stepping forward, thrusting her face toward Stella. You want to slap me? I'd like to see you try. Before she could finish her sentence, a sharp, crisp crack echoed through the air. Time seemed to stand still, the only sound being Jenna's heavy breathing. She touched her stinging cheek in disbelief, her lips trembling. After a long moment, she shrieked, You really hit me? Kevin, she hit your mother. What are you just standing there for? Kevin snapped out of his daze, his face turning beet red. He stammered, tugging at his mother's arm. Mom, she's Stella Sue. I don't care if she's Stella, or whatever. She hit me. Slap her face until it's pulp. Mom, she's the third lady of the Sue family. Kevin's voice was almost a sob. Those words were like a bucket of ice water poured over Jenna's fury. She froze, staring at Stella in disbelief. Which Sue family? Besides the one in the south of the city, which other Sue family is there in Xinjiang? Kevin was frantic. Jenna's legs went weak, and she nearly collapsed. All the blood drained from one side of her face. The Sue family was a titan, a giant that the Qin family could only look up to. She couldn't fathom how the prize daughter of the Sue family could get involved with a loser like Ian Pai. In that moment of distraction, another crisp slap landed on her other cheek. Stella retracted her hand, her tone frigid. You can insult me, I can tolerate that. But you will not call my husband a loser. The two slaps left Jenna completely stunned. Kevin was terrified out of his wits and hurried forward to smooth things over. Miss Sue, I think this is all a misunderstanding. My brother-in-law. No, Ian Pai, he's just a charlatan. He freeloaded off our family for 3 years. Did he trick you? That's because you people are blind to the treasure you had. Stella scoffed. He may be a loser in your eyes, but in my eyes, he's priceless. Just then, Jenna's phone rang. Flustered, she answered it, accidentally hitting the speakerphone button. Jade's cool voice came through the line. Mom, if Ian comes back to get his things, don't give him a hard time. He didn't take the $1 million I offered him. The faces of the mother and son flushed red, then went pale with embarrassment. Ian let out a cold laugh, bent down, and picked up the worn wooden box that Kevin had stepped on. Stella linked her arm through his once more, and with the air of a victor, they turned their backs on the stunned pair. The Ferrari drove smoothly, eventually stopping in the underground garage of the Sue Group headquarters. Ian followed Stella into a lavish office on the top floor, a sprawling space of over 3,000 square feet. The moment they entered, Stella's demure, dependent act vanished, replaced by the commanding aura of a queen. She sat in her large executive chair and spoke to her assistant, who was already waiting. Given the agreement. A cold marriage agreement was placed in front of Ian. Mr. Pai, you didn't actually think your marriage to Miss Sue was real, did you? The assistant's voice was professionally detached, with a hint of disdain. Of course, Ian knew it was fake. He just hadn't expected the act to be so elaborate. He looked at the harsh terms, a 1-year term, playing the role of a loving couple in public, mandatory cohabitation, and even the duty to protect Stella's personal safety. He wanted to refuse, but after Stella used a combination of threats and enticements, from reminding him of her help to dangling money, even bringing up the expensive suit he was wearing, he reluctantly gave in. After signing the agreement that paid him $20,000 a month, Ian drove the Ferrari back to the old part of the city, to the old house his master had left him. Pushing open the unlocked courtyard gate, he was greeted by a familiar scent of plants and aged wood. He walked into the simple but spotless main hall, lit 3 sticks of incense before his master's memorial tablet, and bowed 3 times. Master, you said that as long as I was the Qin family's son-in-law, I must never open this box. Now, I have been cast out. Today, your disciple will follow the second part of your last wish. He picked up an ancient bronze key from the altar and slowly inserted it into the box's lock. With a soft click, the sealed secret was opened. In the center of the box lay a sheepskin pouch embroidered with dragons. Inside, 18 needles, 9 gold, 9 silver, lay quietly. The dragons carved onto them were so lifelike they seemed ready to leap off. This was the sect's greatest treasure, the 9 mysteries, 18 needles. In the corner of the box was a yellowed, blue-covered, thread-bound book, the 9 mysteries Jade Clarity Sutra, and a small, dark wooden case. With trembling hands, he opened the case. A dark, unfamiliar ring met his eyes. "Put it on, and you will be the 9th master," a deep voice said suddenly from behind him. Ian didn't turn. He recognized the voice of his master's attendant, Uncle Fu. He held up the ring, confused. "Uncle Fu, what is the 9th master?" Uncle Fu walked forward, his expression solemn. "This ring is the token of the master of the 9 mysteries sect. In the martial world, the sect master is known as the 9th master. The late master's final order was for you to put it on." Ian was shaken to his core. His master was the head of a mysterious sect? He hesitated no longer and slid the ring onto the ring finger of his left hand. It fit perfectly, a warm sensation spreading from it. A faint golden light, like the shadow of a dragon, flowed across its surface. Seeing this, Uncle Fu dropped to his knees. "Fu Ruhai greets the 9th master. From this day forward, you are the 17th master of the 9 mysteries sect." Ian helped him up, still reeling from the shock. Uncle Fu then handed him a letter from his master. In it, his master had foreseen this calamity and instructed him to go to Spirit Island on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month if he wanted to understand everything. However, the end of the letter took a sharp turn. "Raising you was very expensive, so I borrowed a little something from the Lord of Spirit Island for your baby formula. When you go, remember to pay it back for me." An ominous feeling rose in Ian's heart. He shook out several slips of paper from the envelope. One glance, and he nearly fainted. On each IOU was a string of zeros so long he couldn't count them. The total was over 100 billion. "Master, what kind of dragon's milk were you drinking?" Ian clutched the IOUs, wanting to cry but having no tears, feeling as if he had just climbed out of one pit only to fall into a bottomless abyss. Just as he was contemplating the meaninglessness of his existence, a clear, urgent voice called from outside the courtyard gate. "Excuse me, is Miracle Dr. Pai here?" A young woman in a white dress peeked her head in. She introduced herself as Crystal Gu, sent by her third uncle, the commander of the provincial defense garrison, to ask Ian to treat her gravely ill grandfather. The moment Ian heard there was money in treating the sick, his eyes lit up. He saw a glimmer of hope for repaying his massive debt and immediately agreed. However, when he followed Crystal to the Gu family estate in the east of the city, the grand residence of one of Xinjiang's 5 great families, he was stopped by a sharp-faced young man. It was Ethan Gu, the eldest young master. He looked Ian up and down with utter contempt. Well, Crystal, is this the miracle doctor you found? You dare bring a common street healer to our home? My father has already invited the nationally renowned Dr. Li. You and your miracle doctor can go back where you came from." Crystal looked conflicted, but Ian was unfazed. He glanced at the anxious girl, gave a slight smile, and turned to leave. "Don't worry about it. I'll wait outside." His voice was quiet but filled with unshakable confidence. "In a little while, someone will come out and beg me to go back in." The vermilion gates of the Gu estate swung shut, separating the anxiety within from the tranquility outside. Ethan Gu's boastful taunt, "From now on, I'll call you Big Brother," still echoed faintly in the air, a ridiculous postscript. Ian hadn't actually left. He strolled over to an old locust tree outside the courtyard, plucked a green leaf, and stuck it in his mouth. Leaning against Crystal's conspicuous Maserati, he gazed calmly at the sky. He knew it wouldn't be long before that gate opened for him again, and this time, it would be with a very different attitude. Deep within the estate, in a bedroom, the air was so heavy it felt tangible. The head of the Gu family stood by, holding his breath, watching the so-called national medical saint, Dr. Li, treat his bedridden father. On the bed, Jonah Gu's face was ashen, his eyes shut tight, his chest rising and falling with only the faintest of movements, as if the flame of his life could be extinguished at any moment. Dr. Li's forehead was beaded with sweat. He held a silver needle poised above a critical acupoint on the old man's chest, but he dared not insert it. The needle felt as heavy as a mountain, making his arm tremble slightly. After a long while, Dr. Li sighed, slowly retracting the needle. He bowed to the family head with a look of deep shame. "Mr. Gu, about your father's illness. Please forgive my incompetence. His life force is nearly depleted. Any aggressive needle technique would only hasten the end. It's best to start making arrangements." His words were a hammer blow, shattering the last vestiges of hope. Just then, Crystal pushed the door open. Seeing Dr. Li's expression, her heart sank. "Uncle, how is Grandpa?" Dr. Li shook his head in shame. Crystal's face paled, tears welling in her eyes. Suddenly, she remembered something and said urgently, "Wait, third uncle recommended a miracle Dr. Pai. He said he could definitely save Grandpa. I brought him here." Crystal, Stop this nonsense, the family head said grimly. Even Dr. Lee. Wait. Dr. Lee's ears perked up. He shot his head up, a glint in his eye. Miss Gu, who did you just say? Miracled Dr. Pai. Crystal nodded blankly. Yes, that's what my third uncle called him. He's from the old street. The old street. It's him. It's really him. Dr. Lee's voice trembled with excitement. Heavens. If you've truly brought Miracle Dr. Pai here, then your grandfather can be saved. Miss Gu, where is he? Quickly, take me to him. The family head was completely bewildered. 1 second, he's being told to prepare for a funeral. The next, he's told there's hope. The reversal was too abrupt for him to process. Crystal stamped her foot in frustration and anger. I did bring him here, but Ethan sent him away. What? Dr. Lee looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, nearly jumping out of his skin. Foolishness. What are you waiting for? Go and bring him back. The three of them rushed out of the bedroom, nearly colliding with Ethan, who was waiting in the courtyard. The family head, furious, shoved him aside, roaring, I'll deal with you later. When they burst through the main gate and saw Ian casually leaning against the car, they all let out a collective sigh of relief. Crystal ran over, hand on her chest, panting, Miracle Dr. Pai. You're still here. You scared me to death. Ian spat out the leaf, giving them a lazy glance. What's the matter? Couldn't cure him. Dr. Lee hurried over, his posture incredibly deferential, almost fawning. Miracle Dr. Pai, do you remember me? Oh, old Lee, you look vaguely familiar, Ian replied nonchalantly. Dr. Lee was so overjoyed he nearly jumped. He bowed deeply. It's me. Miracle Dr. Pai, this gentleman's father is critically ill. I implore you to intervene. All doubt had vanished from the family head's mind. He rushed forward, pleading, Miracle Dr. Pai, please, you must save my father's life. Whatever your terms, whatever the price, the Gu family will not hesitate. Ian gave a wry smile. Is that so? But just a moment ago, I was thrown out like a beggar. If I just walk back in, what does that say about my reputation? The family head's face darkened. He spun around and roared. Ethan, get over here and apologize to Miracle Dr. Pai. Though 100 times unwilling, under his father's crushing pressure, Ethan shuffled over and mumbled a reluctant, I'm sorry. But Ian wasn't letting him off that easily. What was it you said before? If someone invited me back in, you would call me Big Brother, correct? Under his father's murderous gaze, Ethan's face turned crimson. Finally, he squeezed 2 words through his teeth. Big Brother. Only then did Ian grin, satisfied. He picked up his worn wooden box and walked into the Gu estate. Upon entering the bedroom, he took one look at Jonah Gu on the bed and his brow furrowed slightly. He walked to the bedside and glanced at Dr. Lee. Old Lee, you used the celestial orthodox 18-needle technique. Yes, but I dared not apply the final needle. It's a good thing you didn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't be saving a life right now. We'd be arranging a funeral. Ian's words were casual, but they sent a cold sweat down Dr. Lee's spine. In front of everyone, Ian admonished him bluntly. I told you long ago, this technique is too aggressive. It should be used with extreme caution on the weak. It seems you've forgotten. Dr. Lee bowed his head like a schoolboy being scolded, nodding repeatedly. The family head and Crystal watched from the side, their hearts roiling with shock and awe. Ian said no more. He slowly opened his wooden box and took out the dragon-embroidered sheepskin pouch. When the 18 gold and silver needles were revealed, Dr. Lee's eyes shone with unparalleled reverence. Ian casually picked up 3 golden needles. With a slight vibration of his fingertips, the needles emitted a soft hum, like a dragon's whisper. With his left hand, he lifted the blanket. With his right, his wrist dipped, and the 3 needles vanished into Jonah Gu's body. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water, too fast to be seen clearly. Then, he swept his hand over the ends of the needles, and they began to vibrate intensely, as if they had come alive. Dragon's breath technique. It's the long-lost dragon's breath technique. Dr. Lee trembled with excitement. 10 minutes later, Ian swept his left hand to retrieve the needles, while his right hand gently massaged the old man's liver and gallbladder area 3 times. Jonah Gu's eyes shot open. He lurched over and began to vomit violently, spewing half a basin of foul-smelling black fluid that was nauseating to behold. Afterward, he let out a long sigh and sat up in bed. His once deathly pale face had regained some color. That feels better. Thank you, Miracle Dr. Pai, for saving my life. Jonah Gu was overcome with gratitude. Ian waved it off, accepted a black card with 20 million on it from the family head, and prepared to leave. Crystal insisted on driving him back to the old street. Before she left, they exchanged phone numbers. As Ian watched the Maserati disappear, he didn't even have a moment to breathe before another familiar figure appeared at the corner. It was Jade Chin, her assistant, Helen Huang, standing beside her car. Well, look at you. Already hooked another one. You really work fast, Ian Pai. Jade's voice was laced with an acidity she herself didn't recognize. Ian ignored her and turned to walk away. But Jade hurried forward and pressed a jade pendant into his hand, her tone icy. This was the only gift you ever gave me. You said it was a family heirloom. Now, I'm returning it. Looks like you've gotten used to being a freeloader, haven't you? Lost one meal ticket and immediately found another. You must have had this one lined up for a while, right? Helen chimed in with a snide remark. Faced with his ex-wife's mockery and misunderstanding, the last remnants of any old feelings Ian had for her evaporated. He closed his hand around the still-warm jade pendant and calmly watched Jade's car drive away, a sense of finality settling in his heart. Just then, his phone rang. It was Stella Sue. As soon as he answered, her charming yet commanding voice came through. Ian, where are you right now? Don't forget our agreement. Tomorrow, we have a hard battle to fight. My husband can't very well desert his post, can he? Hanging up Stella's cryptic call did little to calm Ian's mind. Instead, it stirred up a storm of questions. A hard battle? Tomorrow? He drove out of the city, leaving the urban noise behind as the car moved smoothly toward Rohan Mountain on the outskirts. He needed a place to think, a place to sort through the absurdity of it all. His master's last wish, his sudden identity as the ninth master, a debt of over 100 billion, and this wild, enigmatic contract wife. The car stopped at the foot of the mountain. Ian followed a weed-choked path upward. The mountain wind was crisp, rustling the bamboo grove beside the path with a soft, whispering sound. He had just stepped deep into the grove when a sharp gust of wind shot towards him from the side, accompanied by a fierce shout. Who goes there? Before the voice had faded, a nimble figure lunged like a panther, a powerful hand chop slicing through the air with a piercing whistle, aimed directly at his ribs. Ian's pupils contracted. His body's instincts moved faster than his thoughts. Without even turning, he casually swung his left hand backward, the motion as effortless as swatting a fly. Ryan, show mercy. A desperate, aged voice called from deeper within the bamboo, but it was too late. A muffled thud echoed through the grove, like a heavy hammer striking thick leather. The force of the impact sent a gust of wind through the bamboo, making the leaves rustle violently. The young attacker, Ryan, felt his palm strike what felt like a red-hot iron mountain. An overwhelming, terrifying force surged back at him, instantly shattering his own momentum. His body flew backward uncontrollably, snapping several thick bamboo stalks with a series of sharp cracks before he crashed messily to the ground. For a moment, the grove fell deathly silent. The white-haired old man and the young woman in red, standing further back, were utterly stunned. The scene of broken bones they had anticipated had occurred, but the one on the ground was their strongest fighter, Ryan. Ian slowly turned around, looking at the young man struggling to rise from the broken bamboo, a puzzled frown on his face. Is this area off-limits? Why can't I be here? Ryan clutched his right arm, which was numb and throbbing with excruciating pain, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. He knew that if his opponent had wanted to, that casual swing could have shattered his internal organs. The white-haired elder, Titus Lay, had now completely dropped his aggressive stance. He hurried forward and gave Ian a deep bow, his attitude sincere. My name is Titus Lay. I have failed to discipline my grandson properly. I apologize on his behalf, Mr. Huh, no need. He didn't hurt me. Ian's anger subsided as quickly as it had flared. He turned to leave. Young friend, please wait. Titus quickly moved to block his path, offering a business card made of pure gold with both hands. His tone held a hint of hope. I wonder if you would be willing to make a friend. Ryan and Ruby Lay were petrified. Their grandfather, the master of the Wind and Thunder Hall, a titan in the provincial martial arts world, had never spoken to a young man with such deference. But what happened next left them even more dumbfounded. Ian glanced at the golden card that countless powerful families would kill for and uttered two simple words, not interested. With that, he walked straight past the stunned Titus Lay and continued on his way. Ruby stomped her foot in anger, about to chase after him, when Ian's voice drifted back. This time, his gaze was fixed on Titus. Mr. Lay, the techniques you practice are powerful, but they hide a dangerous flaw. If you continue, your life will be in danger. It would be best to stop practicing them. Upon hearing this, Titus Lay's entire body shuddered. He let out a long sigh. To think you could see my chronic ailment with a single glance. I won't hide it from you, young friend. I came to Xinjiang this time precisely to seek out the enlightened Master Tianyang to cure this affliction. I just never expected. Master Tianyang passed away 3 years ago. A flicker of emotion crossed Ian's eyes. He took the golden card from Titus's hand and casually slipped it into his pocket. However, your injury isn't necessarily something only he could treat. Leaving behind this profound statement, Ian's figure disappeared at the end of the bamboo path. At the mountain's peak, he sat cross-legged on a large stone, took out the 9 Mysteries Jade Clarity Sutra, and let the wind wash over him as he gradually entered a meditative state. When he opened his eyes again, the sky was ablaze with the colors of sunset. The energy within him felt stronger than before, and his mind was clearer than it had ever been. Returning to the luxurious villa in Cloud Top Gardens, he was finally confronted with the truth of the so-called hard battle. After dinner, Stella changed into a loose silk nightgown and leaned languidly against the staircase banister, her beautiful eyes fixed on him. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, Xinjiang International Hotel. You are going to crash a wedding. Crash a wedding? Ian thought he had misheard. That's right. Stella slowly descended the stairs, her feet bare and elegant. She came to a stop in front of him, her fingertips gently lifting his chin. Her eyes held a hint of grievance, but her tone was absolute. Tomorrow is my engagement party to Felix Yi, the eldest son of the Yi family. You are my legal husband. Are you going to just stand by and watch me get engaged to another man? Ian's mind reeled as all the pieces finally clicked into place. This woman had planned everything from the very beginning. She didn't want to marry Felix Yi, so she had dragged him, a freshly divorced unlucky bastard, to be her shield. And the climax of her plan was tomorrow's engagement party. I won't do it, he refused flatly. That's the Yi family, the #1 family in Xinjiang. Crashing their party is a death wish. You don't have to go if you don't want to. Stella smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Then I'll just run away myself. In front of all the city's media, I'll show them our marriage certificate. And then I'll tell everyone that you, Ian Pai, abandoned Jade Qin for me, and now you're abandoning me too. Scumbag. Her assistant, Zheng Li, appeared from nowhere, delivering the fatal blow with perfect timing. Ian looked at the two women working in perfect concert, and his head throbbed. Stella pressed her advantage, taking his hand and shaking it gently. She leaned in, the view beneath her loose nightgown tantalizingly close, her breath warm against his skin. Oh, come on, just this once. Help me, please. In the end, battered by a combination of threats, seduction, and money, an extra 5,000, Ian gritted his teeth and agreed to the insane gamble. This one time, and never again. Early the next morning, the area outside the Xinjiang International Hotel was already swarming with people and luxury cars. A giant screen broadcasted the happy news of the Yi and Su families' union. Rumors that Stella Su had secretly married the Qin family's former loser were circulating through the crowd, but most dismissed them as baseless gossip. When Stella, dressed in a stunning white gown, stepped out of the car driven by Ian, the flashing cameras and cheers reached a crescendo. She was as beautiful as a goddess descended to earth, walking slowly up the red carpet on her father's arm. Before closing the car door, Zheng Li gave one final instruction. Remember, 9 o'clock sharp. Be on time. Ian parked the car by the roadside and watched the grand, chaotic scene through the window, feeling not a ripple of emotion. He took out his old, battered phone and started a game of Snake. The clumsy little snake on the screen moved, eating one pixelated dot after another. The clock on the hotel's grand entrance ticked, second by second, closer and closer to 9. Inside the banquet hall of the Xinjiang International Hotel, crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant light, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and exotic flowers. The most powerful people in Xinjiang were gathered here, their hushed conversations forming the background noise of the city's business empire. At this moment, all eyes were on Stella Su as she glided down the red carpet. In her white gown, she was as beautiful as a masterpiece of art, each step causing the hearts of every man in the room to flutter. Yet, her flawless face showed none of a bride's joy. Her clear eyes were as calm as still water, only occasionally flicking towards the hall's heavy oak doors, as if waiting for something. On the stage, today's groom, Felix Yi, was beaming. His life was perfect, a prominent family, handsome looks, and today, he was about to marry the woman he had pursued for nearly a decade, the #1 beauty in Xinjiang, Stella Su. He was about to become the object of envy for every man in the city, a complete winner in life. Stella walked onto the stage. When Felix extended his hand, she hesitated for a fraction of a second before finally placing her fingertips in his. Amidst the cheerful music, the MC's enthusiastic speech filled the hall. The atmosphere was celebratory, with congratulations echoing from every corner. Everything seemed perfect as a meticulously staged play. The ceremony quickly moved to its final part, the exchange of vows. Mr. Felix Yi, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? I do. Felix's voice was loud and clear, filled with unrestrained excitement. The hall erupted in applause. The MC's gaze shifted to Stella, a professional smile on his face. Ms. Stella Su, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? All the spotlights converged on her. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone held their breath, waiting for those two words. The smile on Felix's face was at its peak. His father and grandfather, seated nearby, also wore expressions of satisfaction. However, Stella didn't speak. She slowly turned, her calm gaze sweeping over every expectant or puzzled face in the audience. Finally, her eyes settled on the grand doors of the hall, which were slowly being pushed open. In that instant, Her placid face burst into a brilliant smile, like a frozen lake thawing in the warmth of spring. Then, 3 words, clear and distinct, left her lips and carried throughout the entire hall. I do not. She casually tossed her bouquet, the vibrant roses tracing a graceful arc through the air before landing on the ornate carpet. An uproar ensued. Everyone shot to their feet, staring at Stella in disbelief, then followed her gaze to the entrance. There stood a tall, slender young man in a well-tailored casual suit, a faint, unreadable smile on his face. He and Stella were looking at each other across the vast room. Stella, what did you say? Felix's smile froze on his face, quickly turning to shock and then rage. He grabbed her arm. Stella forcefully pulled away, her voice quiet but firm. I said I do not. She raised her hand and pointed to the man who was now walking with steady steps towards the stage. Because he is my man. That sentence was a bomb that detonated in the crowd. Murmurs, gasps, and sharp intakes of breath merged into a chaotic symphony. The faces of the Sue family turned deathly pale, while the faces of the Yi family were dark with an impending storm. Ian ignored everyone around him, taking one step, then another. He reached the front of the stage, looked up at the woman who had stirred up a tempest for his sake, and said in a voice both gentle and clear, Honey, I'm here to take you home. Stop right there. Felix roared like a cornered lion. His eyes were bloodshot, fixed on Ian as if he wanted to tear him apart with his gaze alone. I am already married. Stella ignored him. Her assistant, Zheng Li, had appeared out of nowhere and handed her the red marriage certificate. She held it high for all to see. He, Ian Pai, is my legal husband. This time, no one had any doubts. The sensational rumor from the day before was now brutally confirmed. The entire banquet hall exploded. She's crazy. Stella Sue has lost her mind. The whole Sue family is insane. To humiliate the Yi family like this, they're pushing the Sue family to its ruin. The patriarch of the Yi family slammed his hand on the table, shattering a wine glass. He rose to his feet, his terrifying presence making the air around him feel heavy. Is this the explanation your Sue family gives me? As tensions reached a breaking point, a portly middle-aged man, the head of a second-tier family, hoping to curry favor with the Yes, was the first to stand up. He pointed at Ian and shouted, Kid, who do you think you are? Daring to ruin the Yi family's event, you must have a death wish. My family is the first to disagree. Following his lead, one family after another, all seeking to align with the Yi family, rose to their feet, surrounding Ian, their words dripping with threats and contempt. Even the head of the Hua family, ranked third among the 5 great families, stood up and added his pressure with a cold sneer. Ian surveyed the greedy, fawning, and vicious faces surrounding him and simply shook his head in disdain. You think you're worthy? Arrogant fool, the Hua family head roared. Men, break his legs. Let's see how he stands and talks then. 4 menacing bodyguards immediately rushed forward. Stella cried out in alarm, instinctively spreading her arms to shield Ian. Stop. At that moment, a powerful shout, filled with supreme authority, boomed from the entrance. It was like a great bell, making everyone's ears ring. The crowd turned in shock to see an old man in simple clothes, accompanied by a young man and woman of extraordinary bearing, striding into the hall. It was Titus Lay and his grandchildren. The moment he entered, his eyes locked onto Ian. When he saw the plain black ring on Ian's finger, the martial arts master's body gave an imperceptible shudder, his eyes filling with a storm of emotions. The head of the second-tier family, oblivious to who he was dealing with, stepped forward to block their path, his face arrogant. Who is this old man? Get out of here, don't interfere with the Yi family's business. Titus Lay's gaze turned as cold as a blade. He stared at the man and asked, each word deliberate. And what are you, that you dare to speak to me this way? I am the head of the Hua family. Titus let out a cold laugh, a sound that seemed to drop the temperature in the entire hall. He stopped looking at the man and turned to his granddaughter, Ruby. His voice was calm, terrifyingly so. Ruby, call your uncle. I want the Hua family of Qinjiang bankrupt within half an hour. Inside the shimmering banquet hall of the Qinjiang International Hotel, the air was thick with the scent of fine champagne and the low hum of high society. Every guest was a heavyweight in the city's social and economic circles. And at this moment, every eye was fixed on the woman in the white wedding gown gliding towards the stage, Stella Sue. She was breathtaking, as if all the light in the world had converged upon her. At the other end of the stage, the groom, Felix Yi, was beaming with a joy he could no longer contain. He had waited for this day for far too long. Soon, he would possess the one woman every man in Qinjiang dreamed of, and his life would be complete. But amidst the thunderous applause and well-wishes, Stella's face remained placid, her clear eyes repeatedly glancing past the crowd towards the heavy oak doors, as if awaiting a final judgment. The ceremony quickly reached its climax, when the MC asked in a booming voice, Ms. Stella Sue, do you take this man to be your husband? A hush fell over the hall. Everyone held their breath, waiting for her answer. Stella didn't look at Felix beside her. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping over the audience until it landed on the entrance doors, which were just beginning to open. In that instant, a radiant smile bloomed on her serene face, like a frozen lake thawing in the spring sun. Then, for words, clear and resolute, echoed through the hall. "I do not." An uproar ensued. Everyone shot to their feet, following her gaze to the entrance. A slender young man stood there, a smile on his face, looking back at Stella on the stage. "Stella, what did you say?" Felix's smile froze, morphing into shock and then fury. Stella pulled her hand from his grasp, her voice unwavering. "I said I do not." She pointed to the man now walking steadily toward the stage. "Because he is my man." The statement was a bombshell. Ian walked to the stage, ignoring the chaos, and looked up at the woman who had unleashed this storm for him. "Honey," he said, his voice gentle and clear. "I'm here to take you home." A moment later, Stella's assistant, Zheng Li, handed her a red marriage certificate. Stella held it high for all to see. "I am already married. He, Ian Pai, is my legal husband." The wild rumors were confirmed. The faces of the Yi family turned dark with rage. The patriarch, Victor Yi, slammed his hand down, shattering a wine glass, a terrifying aura spreading from him. "You have a death wish." Dexter Hua, head of a lesser family eager to curry favor, was the first to lash out at Ian. "How dare you crash the Yi family's event? My family will not stand for it." Others followed suit, including Forrest Hua, head of the powerful Hua family. "Men, break his legs," he roared. Four menacing bodyguards rushed forward. Stella cried out, instinctively shielding Ian with her body. "Stop!" A commanding shout boomed from the entrance, so powerful it made everyone's ears ring. A plainly dressed old man entered, flanked by a young man and woman. It was Titus Lay and his grandchildren. His eyes immediately found Ian, and upon seeing the unassuming black ring on Ian's finger, the great master's body gave a slight, almost imperceptible tremor, his eyes filled with a storm of emotion. Dexter Hua, not recognizing him, stepped forward arrogantly. "Who is this old fossil? Get out. Don't interfere with the Yi family's business." Titus's eyes turned to ice. "And what are you, that you dare speak to me this way?" "I am Dexter Hua, head of the Hua family." Titus sneered, a sound that seemed to drop the temperature in the room. He turned to his granddaughter. "Ruby, call your uncle. I want the Hua family of Qingjiang bankrupt within half an hour." The statement was met with shock, then derisive laughter. Dexter Hua laughed the hardest. But less than 10 minutes later, his phone began ringing frantically. As he listened, his smile froze, then turned to horror, and finally to ashen despair. His company's funding was cut, shareholders were pulling out, his factories were being seized. The news was a death sentence. "The Hua family is finished." Dexter collapsed to the floor, looking pleadingly at Victor Yi. But the Yi patriarch, from the moment he heard Titus Lay's name, had turned pale with fear. He hurried forward, bowing deeply. "Forgive my ignorance, Elder Lay. I did not know you were here." The name, Elder Lay, was a thunderclap that left the other guests reeling. The head of Qingjiang's most powerful family was bowing to this old man. Titus ignored the fawning crowd, giving Victor Yi a cold look. "Now, can you let them go?" Though filled with rage, Victor Yi could only grit his teeth and agree. Titus then turned and left without a single glance at the Su family. It was clear to everyone he was there only to protect Ian Pai. After Titus left, the suffocating pressure vanished, replaced by Victor Yi's suppressed fury. Unable to vent his anger on Titus, he directed it all at the Su family. "Samuel Su, the Yi family will remember today's humiliation. From this moment on, we are enemies. All investments are withdrawn." Like a collapsing wall, the other families rushed to sever ties with the Su family. The grand hall, once full of guests, was suddenly empty, leaving only the dozen or so members of the Su family amidst the wreckage. "It's over. The Su family is over." The family patriarch, Samuel Su, slumped into a chair, tears streaming down his face. What followed was a vicious internal storm. "Stella, kneel." Samuel screamed at his granddaughter. Her uncles and aunts unleashed their fury upon her, blaming her selfish actions for pushing the entire family into the abyss. Faced with the condemnation of her family, Stella was remarkably calm. She simply held Ian's arm, telling everyone she had no regrets. But in the face of the family's ruin, her personal feelings meant little. Finally, Samuel waved his hand in defeat. "Stella, you are no longer fit to be the group CEO. Effective immediately, you are removed from all positions. Your cousin, Stan Su, will take your place." Just as Stan's face lit up with glee and the rest of the family thought the matter settled, a quiet voice cut through the tension. "Wait a minute." Every eye in the room instantly turned to Ian Pai. "Wait a minute." Ian's voice wasn't loud, but in the vast, ruined banquet hall, it was like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of anger outwards. After a brief moment of shock, the Su family's collective fury found a new target, shifting instantly from Stella to Ian. "What else is there to say? You're just a worthless freeloader who leeches off women." Stella's aunt, Susan, shrieked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I have no idea what Stella sees in trash like you. The newly appointed CEO, Stan Su, sized Ian up with unconcealed disdain. Even though you and Stella are legally married, our family will never acknowledge it. If you know what's good for you, you'll go and file for divorce right now. A chorus of angry voices joined in. Yes, divorce her now. We'll make sure you can't survive in this city. You've ruined Stella. Are you happy now? Accusations and threats washed over Ian. In their eyes, Ian was the sole cause of this disaster. Whether we get a divorce or not is not up to you, Ian said, his voice surprisingly calm, almost cold, against the wave of fury. That's for Stella to decide. Humph, who knows what kind of spell you've cast on her? Stella's father, Walter Su, seized on this as an excuse for his daughter's behavior, convinced Ian must have deceived her. Ian let out a small laugh and turned to Stella beside him. Stella had been clutching his arm tightly the entire time. Stella looked up, her gaze clear and unwavering as she faced her family. You're all wrong. He didn't trick me. I was the one who forced him to marry me. Her words left the Su family speechless. Stella's mother, Evelyn Shun, finally broke down in tears, grabbing her daughter's hand. My child, what have you done? Mom, Stella's eyes softened with guilt. I had no choice. Everyone in this family was pushing me to marry Felix Yi. Do you know what that means? It means being a sacrifice. I would never have been happy. Stella took a deep breath, her voice low but firm. Felix might be a great catch in your eyes, but to me, he's just a degenerate playboy. Is that the kind of man you wanted me to marry? My marriage will be my decision. Her speech gave her father and grandfather pause, but the immediate crisis loomed over them like a mountain. Her uncle, Simon, scoffed. Fine words. But now the Yi family is furious. All our partners have pulled their funding, and the company won't survive for more than 2 weeks. How will you make your own decisions then? Exactly. No amount of explaining changes anything. What right do you have to be CEO? His wife, Heather, added. Just as the family was about to turn on Stella again, Ian's voice cut in, quiet but powerful. What if Stella could secure $500 million in investments and solve the Su Group's crisis? Would she then be able to reclaim her position as CEO? The hall fell silent as everyone stared at Ian as if he were insane. After a moment, Stan burst into exaggerated laughter. What did you say? If she could secure that kind of investment, none of this would have happened. Don't tell me you can do it. Ian ignored Stan Su, his gaze fixed on the family patriarch, Samuel Su. His expression was calm, yet carried an undeniable confidence. The whole point of marrying Stella to Felix was to solve the crisis. If Stella can solve it without sacrificing herself, and even lead the family to greater heights, isn't that a better outcome? You said you only have 2 weeks of funds left. Then let's make that the deadline. Something in Ian's steady gaze struck a chord with Samuel, reigniting a long-dormant spark of audacity. Samuel slammed his hand on the table, his voice echoing in the empty hall. Fine, I agree. If, within 2 weeks, Stella can truly bring in $500 million and save the group, not only will I reinstate her as CEO, but I will no longer oppose your marriage. Dad, Grandpa, Simon and the others protested, unwilling to let their prize slip away. Enough. Samuel's decision was final. He then added coldly, but if you fail, then you're not only out as CEO, your entire branch of the family will have to give up all their shares in the group. At this, Walter's face turned ashen, and Evelyn looked faint with worry. But there was no turning back. Stella straightened her shoulders and met her grandfather's gaze. Fine, I agree. As the family left, casting looks of scorn and schadenfreude, Walter stormed off after shouting angry words at Stella and Ian. Alone with her parents, Evelyn's strength gave out. Her face went pale, her breathing grew shallow, and she clutched her chest as she began to collapse. Mom, Stella cried out, frantically searching her mother's purse for medication. Ian's eyes sharpened. He stepped forward to support Evelyn, his left palm quietly pressing against her back as a stream of warm energy flowed into her. Miraculously, her frantic heartbeat began to stabilize. After Stella gave her mother a pill, Stella insisted on going to the hospital. But Ian stopped her. We don't need to. Her condition isn't serious. I'll give her an acupuncture treatment when we get home, and she'll feel much better. You know medicine? Stella stared at Ian, completely surprised. Back at the villa, Ian took out his set of golden needles. Under the skeptical eyes of Stella and Zhengli, he skillfully inserted a needle into Evelyn's wrist. Ian moved with swift precision, treating 3 more points in quick succession. He swept a finger over the ends of the needles, and all 4 began to hum softly, glowing with a faint golden light. A few moments later, the color returned to Evelyn's pale cheeks, and her breathing became even and strong. I feel very comfortable. It's warm, and the tightness in my chest is gone. Stella looked at Ian, her eyes filled with shock and curiosity. I can't believe you actually know medicine. Ian smiled proudly. There's a lot I know. Medicine is just one of the things I'm decent at. After taking Evelyn home, Ian didn't return to the villa. He drove to a street food market by the bridge. The noise and energy of the city felt real and grounding. Ian had just found a table when a cheerful voice called out to Ian. "I knew I'd find you here." It was Crystal Goo, sitting alone at a corner table, her food untouched, as if she had been waiting for Ian. "You're a Goo. You eat at places like this?" Ian asked, surprised. Crystal proudly held up her soda. "Who made that rule? I like the atmosphere. My treat. Order whatever you want. 2 skewers of grilled kidneys, a spicy oyster, and an order of scrambled eggs with chives." Ian blurted out without thinking. Crystal's eyes widened. She stared at Ian with a strange expression and sighed dramatically. "Are things that bad? I'm suddenly feeling very sorry for Stella." Ian instantly understood, his face flushing with embarrassment. He scratched his nose. "It's not what you think." Crystal gave Ian a mischievous smile. "Don't explain. Explanations are just excuses. You certainly know a lot, don't you?" On a summer night at the Qingjiang bridgehead, the street food market was ablaze with lights, the air thick with the potent aroma of cumin, chili, and beer. The lively din of the crowd, the clang of spatulas against woks, the shouts of drinking games, and the crisp tinkle of ice melting in glasses all blended into a vibrant symphony of city life. Crystal Goo watched Ian with wide, curious eyes as he wrestled with a skewer of grilled kidney, studying Ian as if Ian were a rare species. "After being so heroic today, shouldn't you be at home with your new wife? Why are you out here eating alone? Did you get kicked out?" Crystal teased Ian. Ian, his mouth full, managed to swallow and mumble, "I don't like her chef's cooking. Too greasy." Ian knew the storm at the hotel had already swept through every social media feed and online forum in the city. Ian was the eye of that storm, a living legend, or perhaps a living joke. "Oh, so you're a celebrity in Xinjiang now? Aren't you afraid the Yi family will come after you?" Crystal tilted her head, though her tone lacked any real concern. "Afraid? Of course, I'm afraid," Ian said nonchalantly, taking another bite. Ian then countered, "What about you? Sitting here with a celebrity like me. Aren't you worried someone from the Yi family will see you and you'll get caught in the crossfire?" "The Yi family is powerful, but they're not crazy. It's just dinner. They wouldn't bother me over something like this," Crystal said. But the way her knuckles whitened as she gripped her soda can betrayed a flicker of nervousness. Just then, a man reeking of alcohol staggered toward their table. He was burly and brutish, clutching a half-empty beer bottle. Vinny slammed a hand on their table, his leering eyes shamelessly roaming over Crystal. "Hey, beautiful all alone? Have a drink with your big brother?" Vinny pushed a foamy glass of beer in front of Crystal. Crystal's face instantly went cold. "Get lost," she snapped, disgustedly sweeping the glass off the table. It shattered on the ground with a loud crack, drawing glances from nearby tables. 3 large men from the next table immediately got up and surrounded Ian and Crystal, smirking. "Vinny, you like this one?" One of them slurred, reaching a greasy hand toward Crystal's shoulder. Crystal reacted instantly, dodging Vinny's friend's touch. "What do you think you're doing? What are we doing? We're gonna have some fun." The man called Vinny chuckled lewdly as he advanced on Crystal. "The feistier you are, the more I like it. Save your energy, you'll be doing plenty of screaming later." Crystal instinctively moved behind Ian. Vinny seemed to notice Ian for the first time. He looked Ian up and down with contempt. "Oh, you've got a little pretty boy protecting you. No wonder you're so bold. Too bad he's all looks and no substance. Eating all those kidneys won't change the fact that he's a loser." Vinny moved around Ian, his grimy hand reaching for Crystal again. There was a soft, barely audible thud. Vinny's outstretched hand slammed down onto the table as if pinned by an invisible force. A moment later, a blood-curdling scream tore from Vinny's throat. Onlookers watched in horror as 2 ordinary wooden chopsticks protruded from the back of Vinny's meaty hand, driven clean through it and deep into the wooden tabletop. The tips of the chopsticks were visible underneath. Blood, thick and slow, dripped from the chopsticks onto the ground. "Your hands are too dirty." Ian's voice was calm. His left hand was still pressing down on the chopsticks, while his right calmly picked up a piece of chive and put it in his mouth. "How could you touch such a beautiful young lady?" Ian mumbled. The entire market fell deathly silent, broken only by Vinny's inhuman screams. Crystal was startled, her hand instinctively grabbing Ian's shoulder. Vinny's 3 friends, after a moment of shock, grabbed beer bottles and yelled, "Let Vinny go." "Okay," Ian complied. With a flick of his fingers, Ian pulled the chopsticks out and tossed them to the ground. 2 bloody holes were left in Vinny's palm, and blood spurted out, followed by another agonizing scream. "You told me to let him go," Ian said with an innocent shrug. "Kill him," Vinny shrieked in pain. 3 beer bottles whistled through the air from 3 directions, aimed at Ian's head. Crystal screamed. 3 loud cracks echoed almost simultaneously. But the expected bloody scene didn't happen. The crowd only saw Ian's figure blur for an instant. The 3 thugs stumbled back, clutching their own heads as blood and beer streamed through their fingers. Enraged, Vinny grabbed another bottle and charged like a mad bull. Ian's eyes narrowed, a cold smirk on his lips. Ian's left hand shot out like lightning, clamping down on Vinny's wrist. With a sharp crack, the bottle was in Ian's hand. Before Vinny could react, the world became a blur, and a powerful force shoved the bottle back into Vinny's own mouth. There was a sickening crunch as the bottle shattered inside Vinny's mouth. His scream, a horrifying mixture of broken teeth, glass shards, and gushing blood, sounded like the wail of a demon from hell, making everyone's hair stand on end. You? Tell me your name. Vinny sputtered, threatening to call for backup. Ian just calmly stated his name, Ian Pye. 15 minutes later, the roar of engines grew louder. A Hummer and 2 vans screeched to a halt, and 24 thugs armed with metal bats piled out. A young man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, chewing on a cigar, swaggered over. It's Prawn. A murmur went through the crowd. This was Vinny's boss, the head of the White Tiger gang. Kid, you dare touch my men? You want to end up at the bottom of the river. Prawn sneered, his eyes landing on Crystal with a flash of lust. I'll give you a choice. The girl comes with me, and I'll only break your legs. You get to live. Ian didn't even bother to stand up. Ian just looked at Prawn calmly. You can't take her, and my legs aren't so easy to break. You have a death wish. Get him, take the girl, and toss this kid in the river. Prawn roared. Just as the thugs were about to swarm Ian and Crystal, a dozen sets of brilliant high beams cut through the night. A convoy of black luxury cars instantly blockaded the entire street. More than 50 imposing men in black suits and sunglasses emerged in perfect unison, radiating a cold, deadly aura. An old man in a white traditional suit, leaning on a walking stick, walked forward, surrounded by his men. His presence was commanding. This was Mr. Kai, the head of the Wind and Thunder Hall's Xinjiang branch. Prawn's bravado evaporated instantly. Prawn recognized Mr. Kai, a terrifying figure in Xinjiang's underworld. You're Mr. Kai. Prawn stammered, barely able to stand. Mr. Kai ignored Prawn and walked straight to Ian, bowing slightly. His tone was unbelievably respectful. Mr. Pye, my apologies for the disturbance. How should these men be dealt with? Prawn dropped to his knees, trembling like a leaf. Prawn finally understood that Prawn hadn't just kicked a steel plate tonight. Prawn had kicked an immovable mountain. Mr. Kai's cold gaze fell on Prawn. You dared to disrespect Mr. Pye, and you tried to touch Mr. Pye's companion. A small lesson is in order. Mr. Kai paused, then instructed his men, 50 slaps to the face. Then break both of his legs. On a summer night at the Xinjiang bridgehead, the street food market was ablaze with lights, the air thick with the potent aroma of cumin, chili, and beer. The lively din of the crowd, the clang of spatulas against woks, the shouts of drinking games, and the crisp tinkle of ice melting in glasses all blended into a vibrant symphony of city life. Crystal Goo watched Ian with wide, curious eyes as he wrestled with a skewer of grilled kidney, studying him as if he were a rare species. After being so heroic today, shouldn't you be at home with your new wife? Why are you out here eating alone? Did you get kicked out? She teased. Ian, his mouth full, managed to swallow and mumble. I don't like her chef's cooking. Too greasy. He knew the storm at the hotel had already swept through every social media feed and online forum in the city. He was the eye of that storm, a living legend, or perhaps a living joke. Oh, so you're a celebrity in Xinjiang now? Aren't you afraid the Yi family will come after you? Crystal tilted her head, though her tone lacked any real concern. Afraid? Of course, I'm afraid, Ian said nonchalantly, taking another bite. He then countered, what about you? Sitting here with a celebrity like me. Aren't you worried someone from the Yi family will see you and you'll get caught in the crossfire? The Yi family is powerful, but they're not crazy. It's just dinner. They wouldn't bother me over something like this, she said. But the way her knuckles whitened as she gripped her soda can betray a flicker of nervousness. Just then, a man reeking of alcohol staggered toward their table. He was burly and brutish, clutching a half-empty beer bottle. He slammed a hand on their table, his leering eyes shamelessly roaming over Crystal. Hey beautiful all alone? Have a drink with your big brother? He pushed a foamy glass of beer in front of her. Crystal's face instantly went cold. Get lost, she snapped, disgustedly sweeping the glass off the table. It shattered on the ground with a loud crack, drawing glances from nearby tables. 3 large men from the next table immediately got up and surrounded them, smirking. Vinny, you like this one? One of them slurred, reaching a greasy hand toward Crystal's shoulder. Crystal reacted instantly, dodging his touch. What do you think you're doing? What are we doing? We're gonna have some fun. The man called Vinny chuckled lewdly as he advanced on her. The feistier you are, the more I like it. Save your energy, you'll be doing plenty of screaming later. Crystal instinctively moved behind Ian. Vinny seemed to notice Ian for the first time. He looked him up and down with contempt. Oh, you've got a little pretty boy protecting you. No wonder you're so bold. Too bad he's all looks and no substance. Eating all those kidneys won't change the fact that he's a loser. He moved around Ian, his grimy hand reaching for Crystal again. There was a soft, barely audible thud. Vinny's outstretched hand slammed down onto the table as if pinned by an invisible force. A moment later, a blood-curdling scream tore from his throat. Onlookers watched in horror as 2 ordinary wooden chopsticks protruded from the back of his meaty hand, driven clean through it, and deep into the wooden tabletop. The tips of the chopsticks were visible underneath. Blood, thick and slow, dripped from the chopsticks onto the ground. "Your hands are too dirty." Ian's voice was calm. His left hand was still pressing down on the chopsticks, while his right calmly picked up a piece of chive and put it in his mouth. "How could you touch such a beautiful young lady?" he mumbled. The entire market fell deathly silent, broken only by Vinny's inhuman screams. Crystal was startled, her hand instinctively grabbing Ian's shoulder. Vinny's three friends, after a moment of shock, grabbed beer bottles and yelled, "Let Vinny go." "Okay," Ian complied. With a flick of his fingers, he pulled the chopsticks out and tossed them to the ground. 2 bloody holes were left in Vinny's palm, and blood spurted out, followed by another agonizing scream. "You told me to let him go," Ian said with an innocent shrug. "Kill him," Vinny shrieked in pain. 3 beer bottles whistled through the air from 3 directions, aimed at Ian's head. Crystal screamed. 3 loud cracks echoed almost simultaneously. But the expected bloody scene didn't happen. The crowd only saw Ian's figure blur for an instant. The 3 thugs stumbled back, clutching their own heads as blood and beer streamed through their fingers. Enraged, Vinny grabbed another bottle and charged like a mad bull. Ian's eyes narrowed, a cold smirk on his lips. His left hand shot out like lightning, clamping down on Vinny's wrist. With a sharp crack, the bottle was in Ian's hand. Before Vinny could react, the world became a blur, and a powerful force shoved the bottle back into his own mouth. There was a sickening crunch as the bottle shattered inside his mouth. His scream, a horrifying mixture of broken teeth, glass shards, and gushing blood, sounded like the wail of a demon from hell, making everyone's hair stand on end. "You? Tell me your name." Vinny sputtered, threatening to call for backup. Ian just calmly stated his name, Ian Pye. 15 minutes later, the roar of engines grew louder. A Hummer and 2 vans screeched to a halt, and 24 thugs armed with metal bats piled out. A young man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, chewing on a cigar, swaggered over. "It's Prawn," a murmur went through the crowd. This was Vinny's boss, the head of the White Tiger gang. Ian didn't even bother to stand up. He just looked at him calmly. "You can't take her, and my legs aren't so easy to break. You have a death wish. Get him, take the girl, and toss this kid in the river." Prawn roared. Just as the thugs were about to swarm them, a dozen sets of brilliant high beams cut through the night. A convoy of black luxury cars instantly blockaded the entire street. More than 50 imposing men in black suits and sunglasses emerged in perfect unison, radiating a cold, deadly aura. An old man in a white traditional suit, leaning on a walking stick, walked forward, surrounded by his men. His presence was commanding. This was Mr. Kai, the head of the Wind and Thunder Hall's Xinjiang branch. Prawn's bravado evaporated instantly. He recognized this man, a terrifying figure in Xinjiang's underworld. You're Mr. Kai," he stammered, barely able to stand. Mr. Kai ignored him and walked straight to Ian, bowing slightly. His tone was unbelievably respectful. "Mr. Pai, my apologies for the disturbance. How should these men be dealt with?" Prawn dropped to his knees, trembling like a leaf. He finally understood that he hadn't just kicked a steel plate tonight. He had kicked an immovable mountain. Mr. Kai's cold gaze fell on Prawn. "You dared to disrespect Mr. Pai, and you tried to touch Mr. Pai's companion. A small lesson is in order." He paused, then instructed his men, 50 slaps to the face. Then break both of his legs. His words had barely faded when 2 men in black stepped forward without emotion. The crisp sound of slaps, like a rapid drumbeat, echoed through the night, each one punctuated by Prawn's pained grunt. After 50 slaps, his face was a swollen, bloody mess. Then, one of the men took a metal bat from a colleague, raised it high, and brought it down without hesitation on Prawn's kneeling legs. 2 sickening cracks of bone, followed by an inhuman, blood-curdling scream, brought a gory and terrifying end to the chaotic night. In the abandoned chemical plant, the air still tasted of rust, dust, and the faint, metallic tang of blood. The members of the so-called Green Dragon Society were still scattered across the overgrown lot, groaning in pain. Ian brushed the non-existent dust from his hands and settled back into the soft driver's seat of his car. The pent-up frustration from crashing the wedding had finally dissipated. He started the engine, ready to head back to the city, but his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered it casually. "Mr. Pai, is this a good time?" The voice on the other end was Crystal Goose, deliberately hushed and mischievous, like a cat that had just stolen cream. Her tone made him instinctively glance around the empty car, and then he chuckled at his own guilty reaction. "It is. Why wouldn't it be?" he replied, matching her whispered tone. "Well, can you come to Xinjiang Business College?" Crystal's voice returned to normal, full of anticipation. "The business college? What for?" "Well, I'm a student here, so I can't be away for too long. Our dinner got interrupted yesterday, so I want to treat you today. Of course, if you're afraid Stella will make you sleep on the couch, we can do it another time." Her teasing made Ian laugh, and a strange sense of competitiveness welled up in him. "That's ridiculous. Why would I be afraid of her?" You say one thing but mean another. If you're not afraid, then come. I'll be waiting for you at the coffee shop across from the south gate. All right, you wait for me. I'll be right there. On an impulse, Ian agreed without a second thought. After hanging up, he paused. She was still a student? Why was she so eager to see him? He straightened his windblown hair in the rearview mirror, looked at his own handsome face, and sighed. Being this good-looking is such a burden. He soon pulled up to the south gate of the business college and found the coffee shop. Pushing open the glass door, he heard the pleasant chime of a wind bell. He immediately spotted Crystal sitting in a booth by the window, the afternoon sun casting a golden halo around her hair. All right, spill it. What do you need? Ian sat down across from her, getting straight to the point. He didn't believe this clever girl had invited him just for a simple meal. Crystal smiled mischievously. Didn't you say that a girl like me should at least be eating in a coffee shop? So are you satisfied with the ambience? She'd remembered his offhand joke. Ian was a little surprised but still looked at her skeptically. Crystal stopped teasing and pulled a beautifully wrapped black box from the seat beside her, sliding it across the table. A phone. Ian recognized the high-end brand logo on the box. Your phone is ancient. It's time for an upgrade, Crystal said, tapping the box with a slender finger. When you answer a call, it's like you have it on speakerphone. I could hear it from 50 feet away. If I ever call you in the middle of the night, Stella will hear everything, won't she? The thought sent a shiver down Ian's spine. He didn't want to give Stella any excuse to dock his $20,000 a month salary over a few strange phone calls. He surrendered. Fine, I'll switch. Crystal beamed triumphantly. She expertly unboxed the new phone, thoughtfully swapping his SIM card, and turned it on. The first thing she did was save her own number before handing it to him, satisfied. Ian was about to offer to pay her back, but she cut him off. What? You don't consider me a friend? Or are you just afraid of explaining it to Stella? He had no choice but to accept the expensive gift. As they were chatting, Crystal's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, her brow furrowing in annoyance as she moved to decline the call. But it rang again, relentlessly. Ian commented casually. If you don't answer, he'll just keep calling. Isn't that annoying? A sly glint appeared in Crystal's eyes, and a feeling of dread washed over Ian. She answered the phone. I'm at the coffee shop across from the south gate. You can come over. Half an hour later, a gleaming BMW pulled up. A young man in a designer suit, holding a bouquet of red roses, got out. He carefully fixed his hair in the car's reflection and wiped his spotless shoes with a handkerchief before striding confidently into the cafe. He walked straight to Crystal, a perfect smile on his face, but it froze when he saw Ian sitting across from her. Who is he? The young man's voice was tight with jealousy. Let me introduce you. Crystal smiled like a fox. This is my friend, Ian Pye, and this is Dr. Dean Lee, an attending physician at Central Hospital. Then, she turned to Ian, her voice sickeningly sweet. Ian, honey, what are you still doing over there? Don't you see we have a guest? Come sit next to me. Ian felt goosebumps, but he played along, moving to sit beside her. Dr. Lee's handsome face had turned thunderous. He forced himself to sit, offering the roses. Crystal, these are for you. Your favorite. Who said I liked these? Crystal pinched her nose dramatically. Oh, my allergies have been terrible lately. Get them away from me, quick. Rebuffed, Dean Lee awkwardly handed the flowers to a passing server. He looked at Ian, his tone dripping with superiority. Is he a doctor? Which hospital is he affiliated with? Before Ian could answer, Crystal jumped in. What's wrong with him? All the specialists at your hospital couldn't cure my grandfather. But he did. What right do you have to look down on him? Dean Lee's face flushed. That was just a lucky break. A blind squirrel finding a nut. Who are you calling a dead squirrel? Crystal exploded, slamming her hand on the table. Dean Lee, how dare you joke about my grandfather? Get out. I don't want to see you right now. The scene was spiraling out of control. It was then that Dean Lee finally recognized Ian, the man who had caused a city-wide scandal the day before. He pointed a trembling finger at him. Crystal, are you insane? He's that worthless freeloader from the Cheen family. The guy who just married Stella Sue yesterday. You're hanging out with him. I know, Crystal said nonchalantly. That's what a real man does. Besides, people can get divorced, right? It's not like he hasn't done it before. Her comment left Ian speechless and completely shattered Dean Lee's composure. He shot to his feet, trembling with rage. Enjoy your meal, he spat and stormed out. As Ian watched him go, he thought the drama was over. But when Dean Lee left the cafe, he was immediately surrounded by a group of street punks with brightly colored hair. Dean stood behind them, his face a mask of fury. What do you want? Ian's voice turned cold. What do I want? Dean spat on the ground. Who the hell do you think you are, trying to steal my woman? Today, we're settling this. He pointed at Ian, issuing a challenge. We're both men, so let's settle this like men. You can call for backup, too, if you dare. Ian glanced at the pathetic-looking punks and sighed. He'd already been in one fight this morning. His hands weren't tired, but his soul was. No need to call anyone, he said, opening his car door. He looked at Dean Lee. Let's go. Lead the way. The car drove smoothly, leaving the bustling city behind before turning into a silent, derelict complex of unfinished buildings. This was a scar on the city's face, where steel skeletons whimpered in the wind and waist-high weeds choked the old construction roads. The air was thick with the desolate scent of concrete, dust, and decay. Dr. Dean Lee's BMW stopped first. He got out, his face a mask of sick excitement and contempt, as if he could already see Ian kneeling and begging for mercy. "Kid, you've got guts, actually daring to come here." Ian surveyed the surroundings and nodded, his tone as casual as if he were admiring the scenery. Not a bad spot. It's quiet. Huh. Even if I killed you here, no one would ever know," Dean said viciously. The thugs behind him swaggered forward, their faces twisted into menacing grins. Ian shot him a disdainful glance. "You think you can kill me with those hands that have only ever held a scalpel?" He paused. "I'll give you one more chance. Get lost now, and I'll pretend this never happened." "Bullshit." Dean was thoroughly enraged. "Get him. Break his legs. Teach him that being a freeloader comes at a price." The yellow-haired thug who had been in Ian's car earlier, thinking he knew Ian's limits, was the first to charge, curses spilling from his mouth. But before he could finish his sentence, a sharp crack echoed through the silence. The thug spun in place like a top before collapsing to the ground, one side of his face swelling rapidly as his mind went blank with a ringing noise. Ian shook his hand, a playful smile still on his face as he looked at the fallen man. Was it a soft price? That one casual slap ignited the fury in the others. The remaining thugs roared and swarmed him, fists and feet flying. Dean folded his arms, a smug smile forming on his lips as he prepared to watch a one-sided beating. But in the next second, his smile froze, then shattered into utter disbelief. He could only see Ian's figure moving like a phantom, weaving between the thugs. There was no fierce struggle, no wasted motion, only a series of dull thuds and the muffled crunch of dislocated bones. In the blink of an eye, all the aggressive thugs were on the ground, curled up and moaning in agony. Ian stood in the same spot, as serene as if he had never moved. He walked slowly toward Dean, whose legs were now trembling uncontrollably, and repeated his earlier words. "You were right. There are people in this world you can't afford to provoke." The voice was soft, but it landed on Dean's heart like a sledgehammer. "And I am one of them." As the words fell, another sharp slap landed squarely on Dean's face, sending him stumbling to the ground, stars exploding in his vision. "Threaten me? You think I'm afraid?" Ian looked down at him, his eyes like ice. He slowly raised his fist, and the undisguised killing intent radiating from him made Dean's blood run cold. A warm liquid instantly soaked his pants. Seeing this pathetic display, the killing intent in Ian's eyes morphed into pure disgust. He lowered his fist. "A self-important loser like you just needs to be taught a lesson." He turned and walked back to his car, followed by the sound of the yellow-haired thugs fawning apologies and the renewed sound of fists and feet landing on Dean Lee. Back at the villa, Ian walked in to find Stella dressed in a sharp business suit, ready to leave. The perfect curves outlined by her blouse and skirt, especially a single button on her chest that seemed to be under immense strain, made Ian's throat go dry. He asked instinctively, "Is that button secure?" Stella froze, then followed his gaze downwards. A blush crept up her cheeks. "Pervert," she snapped, before storming upstairs to change. Zheng Li, who had witnessed the exchange, snorted in disdain. "Men, honestly," Ian retorted without missing a beat, "beautiful women are meant to be appreciated. Why else would I be looking at her, and not you?" His comeback left Zheng Li speechless. Just then, Stella noticed the new phone Ian had left on the coffee table. She picked it up, a hint of sourness in her voice. "Oh, a new phone? I haven't even paid you yet. Did you buy it on credit?" "It was a gift from Miss Gu," Ian replied casually, busy trying to find the snake game on the device. "Crystal Gu." Stella's expression shifted slightly. "Why would she give you a phone? You're not scamming students now, are you? Believe what you want." Ian was getting tired of her accusations. He snatched the phone back and stuffed it in his pocket. "Don't you forget our agreement." Seeing him back down, Stella's mood improved. "For the next year, you are not to fool around with other women. Otherwise, I'll dock your pay." At 6 in the evening, Ian drove Stella and Zheng Li to the Emerald Peak Resort. As they approached the famous private club, Ian's brow furrowed. He glanced at Stella, who was buzzing with nervous excitement about the upcoming negotiation, and a sense of foreboding washed over him. In his perception, the light of her fortune was tinged with a faint, dark shadow. "Zheng Li," he said suddenly, pulling the car over just outside the resort, his expression unusually grave. "When you go in, if you notice anything strange, call my number immediately. Remember, put it on silent. You don't have to say anything." Zheng Li was bewildered. "Are you crazy? We're going to a business meeting, not a death trap." "Better safe than sorry." Ian's tone was firm. Stella considered this for a moment and finally nodded. "Zheng Li, do as he says." Ian dropped them at the entrance, watching as they boarded the resort shuttle. A cold smirk touched his lips. The assistant, a man named Mr. Su who had come to greet them, had a flicker of something strange in his eyes when he saw Ian. It confirmed his suspicion. Tonight was, indeed, a trap. On the third floor of the Serene Heart Pavilion, the air was fragrant with tea. The chairman of Four Seas Capital, Mr. Tong, a mild-mannered middle-aged man, was calmly preparing the tea ceremony. He appeared incredibly sincere, and the feasibility report on investing in the Su Group, placed conspicuously on the table, had already put Stella mostly at ease. However, when dinner began and Mr. Tong raised his glass, insisting with an unyielding tone that Stella must drink a glass of fine red wine, Zheng Li's heart sank. She instinctively reached into her handbag, her fingers closing tightly around her phone. Mr. Tong's smile was still warm, but behind it, a cold, sinister light flashed in his eyes, gone before it could be properly seen. At 6 in the evening, the last rays of sunset coated Xinjiang City in a soft, golden light. Ian drove the car steadily, delivering Stella Su and Zheng Li to the Emerald Peak Resort, a luxurious behemoth on the edge of the city that consumed and exhaled wealth and power. Just outside the resort, Ian suddenly hit the brakes. "Why did you stop?" Stella asked, looking up from the investment proposal she was studying. Ian didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at Zheng Li in the rearview mirror, his expression graver than ever. "Zheng Li, when you go in, if you notice anything strange, call my number immediately. Remember, put it on silent. You don't have to say anything." Zheng Li was baffled. "Are you crazy? We're going to a business meeting, not a death trap." "Better safe than sorry." Ian's voice was low and carried an undeniable weight. "Didn't you say you were beautiful? Aren't you afraid of getting taken care of along the way?" His words were crude, but they set off alarm bells in Stella's mind. She saw in Ian's eyes a raw, almost animalistic intuition. She paused, then told Zheng Li, "Do as he says." Only then did Ian restart the car and pull into the parking lot. He didn't know anything about Four Seas Capital or its chairman, Mr. Tong. But since that morning, he had seen a faint darkness clouding Stella's features, a sign of impending misfortune. He couldn't explain this to her directly, so he had to set up his own insurance policy. The resort shuttle drove them through a landscape of pavilions and rock gardens to a 3-story building called the Serene Heart Pavilion. Mr. Tong's assistant, Mr. Su, a polite man with gold-rimmed glasses, led them to a tea room on the 3rd floor. There, a man in his early 40s with a gentle demeanor was preparing tea. This was Mr. Tong. His sincerity seemed genuine, and the proposal document on the table, titled Feasibility Report on Investing in the Su Group, did much to ease Stella's anxieties. While Mr. Su was preparing dinner, Zheng Li excused herself to the restroom. She locked the door, the cold tap water doing little to cool her sweaty palms. The way Mr. Tong's eyes had lingered on her, filled with undisguised lust, put her on high alert. She quickly sent Ian their location, then did as instructed, dialing his number, silencing the call, and tucking the phone back into a hidden pocket of her handbag. The dinner began pleasantly. Mr. Tong raised his glass with an air of finality. "To be honest, Ms. Su, our board has already approved the $500 million investment into your company. We're just waiting for your final approval. This first glass is to our successful partnership. $500 million. The number was like a shot of adrenaline, shattering all of Stella's remaining doubts. She raised her glass and drained it. Then came the second glass, and the third. Outside, Ian sat in his car, the clear sounds of clinking glasses and Mr. Tong's increasingly enthusiastic toasts coming through his phone. When he heard Stella down the third glass, he couldn't help but mutter, "You fool." Up in the pavilion, Stella's vision was starting to spin. Her cheeks were flushed, and a strange heat was building deep in her stomach. She shook her head, murmuring, I can't drink anymore," before slumping forward onto the table, unconscious. "Ms. Su," Zheng Li cried out, rushing to her side. At that moment, Mr. Tong slowly rose to his feet, his gentle smile gone, replaced by a cold, wicked sneer. "It seems Ms. Su can't hold her liquor. Men, take Ms. Su to her room in the Crimson Pavilion to rest." 4 large men entered and roughly grabbed the unconscious Stella, preparing to drag her out. "What are you doing?" Zheng Li shouted, trying to shield Stella. "What did you put in her drink?" "What did I put in it?" Mr. Tong sneered, grabbing Zheng Li's wrist and throwing her to the floor. "You don't need to worry about her. You just need to know that she's going to have a very good time tonight. As for you, you can stay and keep me company." He lunged at her like a starved wolf, his hands tearing at her business suit. The sound of ripping fabric, mixed with Zheng Li's desperate screams and cries, filled the luxurious room. Ian, come quickly. They've taken Miss Su. Scream all you want. No one is coming to save you." Mr. Tong laughed maniacally, dragging her into the adjacent bedroom and throwing her onto the bed. Just as his filthy hand was about to touch her last line of defense, the entire door to the suite exploded inwards with a deafening boom, sending splinters of wood flying. A dark figure, wreathed in thunderous rage, appeared in the doorway. Before Mr. Tong could even register what was happening, an irresistible force slammed into his chest, sending him flying across the room like a broken doll. He hit the far wall and slid to the floor, unmoving. Ian grabbed the bedsheet and threw it over Zhengli. His eyes were as cold as ancient ice, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Where is Stella Sue?" The Crimson Pavilion. Zhengli pointed out the window, sobbing. Ian vanished. In a room in the Crimson Pavilion, Felix Yi was gloating over the beautiful, motionless body on the bed, paralyzed by the drug. Beside the bed, the red light of a camera was blinking. "Stella Sue, you bitch. I've been in love with you for years, and you humiliated me in front of the entire city." He tore at his own shirt, his eyes bloodshot. "Tonight, I'm going to make you my woman. I'm going to film your most depraved moments and show that loser how his wife begs for me." He spread his arms with a savage grin and lunged for the helpless figure on the bed. Another deafening crash echoed through the building. This time, the entire window, frame and all, shattered. Ian landed in the room like the Grim Reaper descending from the heavens, surrounded by a storm of broken glass. "You're courting death," he said, each syllable laced with a terrifying killing intent. Felix was startled for a second, then his arrogance returned. He threw a punch, shouting, "You loser. Perfect timing. Now you can watch." Before he could finish, Ian's left hand shot out with impossible speed, easily catching Felix's full-force punch. Felix felt his fist being clamped in a vice. A series of sickening, grinding cracks followed as his entire hand was crushed into a twisted mess. An unholy scream echoed through the Crimson Pavilion. Ian kicked him away and walked to the bed. Seeing Stella's flushed cheeks and pained expression, he knew the drug was taking hold. He ignored the pathetic man, now whimpering on the floor, bent down, and carefully lifted Stella into his arms. Before leaving, he reached over and pulled the memory card from the camera. Back at the villa, Ian carried Stella upstairs, setting foot on the forbidden third floor for the first time. Stella's bedroom was a mess, with a few pieces of lace underwear scattered on the bed, creating an awkward atmosphere. Zhengli rushed to clean up, but the bedsheet she was wrapped in made it difficult, and she nearly exposed herself, sending a jolt through Ian. "Sobering soup won't work," Ian said grimly, laying Stella on the bed. "She wasn't just drunk, she was drugged. I'm going to my car to get my needles. One treatment should do it." A treatment. Zhengli's newly calmed nerves frayed again. She clutched the bedsheet, her eyes filled with suspicion and alarm. "I'm warning you," she said, her voice sharp with anger and shame. "Don't you dare take advantage of her." The air in Stella Sue's bedroom was thick with the faint scent of perfume and a palpable sense of fear. Zhengli, now dressed, watched Ian with hawk-like intensity as he drew a long, thin silver needle from his ancient leather pouch. The needle glinted coldly under the light, making her heart clench. "Are you sure? One needle will wake her up." "Of course," Ian said without looking up, his voice steady. "Go downstairs and get me a bowl." "A bowl? What for?" "To let some blood. Can't have it dripping on her carpet, can we?" "Let blood?" Zhengli yelped, her face paling. "Relax, it's just a few drops. Less than your first time," Ian said casually. Zhengli reflexively breathed a sigh of relief and turned to leave. She reached the door, then froze, realizing what he'd said. She spun around, her face a mixture of shame and fury. "What did you just say about a first time?" Ian looked up and gave her a cryptic smile. "You're a woman, don't you know? You pig." Zhengli's face turned scarlet, but she couldn't find a retort. She could only bite her lip in frustration and storm downstairs to get the bowl. The moment she was gone, Ian's demeanor became one of absolute focus. He gently took Stella's hand, the soft, smooth texture sending a slight tremor through him, a distraction he quickly pushed aside. Holding her wrist, his other hand moved like lightning, the silver needle precisely piercing the acupoint at the base of her thumb. When Zhengli returned with the bowl, she witnessed a scene she would never forget. The needle, barely half an inch into Stella's skin, was rapidly turning a shocking, inky black from the bottom up as Ian gently twisted it. "Is that poison?" she gasped. "Of course it's poison. Not lethal, but it causes confusion, delirium, and weakness," Ian explained calmly as he withdrew the needle. A single bead of black blood slowly welled up from the puncture. He placed his left hand on Stella's arm, and a gentle warmth flowed from his palm into her veins. Under the pressure of this energy, the black drop of blood grew larger until it fell with a soft plink into the white porcelain bowl. Then another followed. Zhengli held her breath, her skepticism replaced by awe. She watched as the drops of blood transitioned from black to dark red, and finally back to a normal, bright crimson. The entire process took only a few minutes. When the last drop of clean blood fell, Ian released her hand. "She's fine now." He put his needle away and gently brushed a hand across Stella's forehead. On the bed, Stella let out a soft moan, her long eyelashes fluttering before her eyes opened. She looked around in a daze, and then memory came rushing back. She shot upright, scrambling away in terror. "Stay away from me. Ms. Sue, it's us. You're home. You're safe now." Zhengli rushed forward to comfort her. Stella saw her surroundings, then saw Ian, and calmed down slightly. But then the leering face of Felix Yi filled her mind, and she grabbed Zhengli's arm frantically. "I remember. It was Felix Yi. Where is he? I'll kill him. Seeing her mix of fury and fear, Ian spoke. You don't need to worry. I've already dealt with him. He won't dare to bother you again. You're still weak. Get some rest. He turned to leave. Thank you. Stella's voice, full of genuine gratitude, followed his retreating back. No need. You pay me. It's part of the job, Ian said without turning around. That night, Zhengli stayed with Stella. The two women, fresh from a terrifying ordeal, held each other and talked in low voices. For the first time, Zhengli gave a man her highest praise, while Stella stared at the door in the darkness for a long time, her expression complex. Ian returned to his room and began meditating, practicing the techniques from the 9 Mysteries Jade Clarity Sutra. As the energy flowed through him, he felt as if he were floating in a sea of stars, looking down on the world, a sense of power and fullness filling every part of his being. Meanwhile, the Yi family mansion was shrouded in gloom. Victor Yi trembled with rage as he looked at his son's broken hand and swollen face. After listening to Felix's exaggerated and tearful account, he slammed his hand down, shattering a mahogany table. Ian Pai, the Su family. Do they really think my family is so easily bullied? Early the next morning, an even bigger storm was brewing. Ian came downstairs to find Stella and Zhengli in the living room. Both looked exhausted but were forcing themselves to go through documents, searching for a lifeline for their company. How can I rest? Stella said with a bitter smile. 3 days have passed, and I have no leads on the 500 million. I don't want to disappoint my grandfather. Ian found himself moved by her determined expression. When she was serious, she had a different kind of captivating beauty. Just then, her phone rang shrilly. She answered, and after a few seconds, her face went pale. What is it? My grandfather wants me at the family home immediately. Stella's voice was panicked. He said, the Yi family is there to demand an explanation. They brought reporters. He wants me to bring you. To set things straight. Zhengli was furious. They have the nerve to demand an explanation? They're shameless. Let's go, said Ian, who was in the middle of eating an egg. He calmly took a sip of milk and stood up. Granny Zheng is right. This does involve me. I'm the one who hit him. I'll go with you. Stella stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Zhengli, however, was nearly sent into a rage by the nickname Granny Zheng. She glared at Ian's back and viciously bit into her toast, as if it were him. Ian got into the car, but didn't start it immediately. He took out his new phone and dialed Crystal Gu's number. Miss Gu, do you know any reporters? Yes, have your cousin get to the Su family's old residence right away. There's a big story about to break. What is it? I'll tell you later. Hanging up, a cold smirk played on Ian's lips. He glanced in the rearview mirror in the direction of the Su estate and muttered to himself, demand an explanation? Today, we'll see who is demanding an explanation from whom. The courtyard of the Su family home was tense. Victor Yi stood with his family and Mr. Zhao, the owner of the Emerald Peak Resort, their presence menacing. Felix lay dramatically on a lounge chair, groaning. Several reporters already had their cameras trained on Samuel Su, who stood on the steps, looking pale and as if he had aged 10 years overnight. Mr. Su, Mr. Zhao was the first to attack. Your people caused trouble at my resort and injured young Master Yi and Mr. Tong. Don't you think your family owes me an explanation? It was that kept man of yours, Ian Pai. If you don't hand him over today, the Yi family will not let this rest. Victor's brother, Marcus Yi, roared from the side. Are you looking for me? A calm voice came from the entrance. Ian walked in slowly, flanked by Stella and Zhengli. Ian Pai. Felix's eyes turned red with hatred when he saw him. Kid, were you the one who caused trouble at my resort? Mr. Zhao demanded, pointing a finger at him. I hit him, and I had my reasons, Ian said, ignoring his murderous glare. He countered coldly. As for you, as the owner of Emerald Peak Resort, Ms. Su and Ms. Zheng were drugged on your property and nearly assaulted. Don't you think you bear some responsibility? Nonsense, Mr. Zhao and the Yi family roared in unison. Victor Yi turned to the reporters. Everyone, please report this fairly. This assailant is not only vicious, but he is also a pathological liar. We cannot let a degenerate like this get away with it. Just as Victor thought he had control of the narrative, a sharp, hurried voice cut through the tension from the gate. Excuse me, coming through. I heard there was a huge scoop here. Can't have that without me, can you? A young female reporter in vintage-style clothes, holding a microphone, stumbled in with her cameraman. In the courtyard of the Su family estate, the atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. Victor Yi's face darkened at the sight of the uninvited reporter, Audrey Ouyang. He waved a dismissive hand at her. We don't welcome you here. Leave immediately. On what authority? Ian's scoff broke the oppressive silence. This is the Su family's home. The host hasn't said a word. What gives you the right to kick out their guests? Audrey immediately understood her cue. She held up her press pass defiantly. That's right. The Su family hasn't asked us to leave, so why should you? Unless there's some dirty secret you're afraid of us reporters finding out. Her words cornered Victor Yi. His face turned livid, but he could only relent. Fine, you can stay, but you will report the facts. A faint smile touched Ian's lips. He knew the tide of this media battle was already turning in his favor. The resort owner, Mr. Zhao, was out of patience. He pointed at Ian and said sharply, "Mr. Yi, why waste words on him? This kid assaulted young Master Yi and Mr. Tong. The facts are clear. We should be discussing how to deal with him." "Yes, punish the attacker." Felix's mother, Sharon Xia, added tearfully, "I'm the one who hit him. Why should the Su family kneel?" Ian's voice was calm, but cut through the noise. "Uh-huh. So you finally admit it." Marcus Yi pounced on his words, his face twitching with excitement. "That's right. I did it." Ian's confession was swift and without hesitation. His admission stunned the Su family. Stella's face went white, and she frantically tugged on his sleeve. "Ian, don't talk nonsense." Ian gave her a reassuring smile, then turned a playful gaze on Felix, adding, "And while I was beating that bastard, I happened to record a little video." Mr. Zhao burst out laughing as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. "I've lived a long time, but this is the first I've heard of someone attacking another person and then offering up the evidence himself. Congratulations to the Su family on finding such a fine son-in-law." Everyone looked at Ian as if he were an idiot. Stella burned with shame, wishing the ground would swallow her whole. The Su family was about to become a city-wide joke yet again. "Good. As long as you admit it." A cold smile spread across Victor Ye's face. He looked down on the Su family and announced his verdict. "Your family humiliated mine at the engagement party, and then you incited this loser to injure my son. This is all because of Stella Su." His voice rose. "Now, I demand that every member of the Su family kneels and apologizes to my son. After that, Stella Su will come to my home and serve my son until he has fully recovered." His words were a thunderclap, forcing the elders to kneel to a junior, making the pride of their family into a servant. It was beyond humiliation. It was psychological warfare. "Victor Yi, don't go too far." Samuel Su trembled with rage. "It was your son who tried to harm me first. Ian was protecting me." Stella gritted her teeth, her voice ringing with conviction. "You want me to apologize and serve him? Never. It's not up to you." Mr. Zhao fanned the flames. "Now the Su family will kneel." As the Su family sank into despair, Ian spoke again, his voice still calm. "What gives you the right to make them kneel? The ones who should be kneeling are you, the Yi family, and you, Mr. Zhao. Utter nonsense. You claim Felix harmed Stella? Where's your proof?" Marcus Yi roared. The reporters hired by the Yi family immediately swarmed Felix, prompting him to give a tearful account of Ian's assault. He painted himself as the tragic victim, a man whose love was stolen and who was then brutally attacked. He twisted the facts so convincingly that he nearly fooled everyone. "He's lying. That's not what happened." Stella cried out, but the reporters ignored her. At that moment, Audrey pushed through the crowd and held her microphone out to Stella. "Ms. Su, could you please tell us what really happened?" Stella was too overwhelmed with shame and anger to speak clearly. But Zheng Li stepped forward and recounted everything that had happened at the resort the night before. Mr. Tong drugging them, the attempted assault, and Ian's timely rescue. "Lies." Victor Yi roared, but Audrey shut him down. "Since this is a dispute, we can't just hear one side of the story, can we?" "Sir," one of the other reporters turned back to Ian. "You mentioned you had a video of the assault. Where is it?" All eyes returned to Ian, eager to see if the fool would really incriminate himself. "Oh, thanks for the reminder. I almost forgot," Ian said, as if just remembering. He pulled the small memory card from his pocket. Victor Yi smiled, a triumphant, gloating smile. The idiot was digging his own grave. Audrey took the memory card and inserted it into her camera. Soon, the events from the hotel room were playing out on the small screen for all to see. "Tonight, I'm going to make you my woman. I'm going to film you in bed so you can enjoy watching it later. That's right, I had them drug your wine. It's good stuff. The only shame is, you'll be a drooling idiot for the rest of your life." The video showed Felix's lewd, vile, and malicious face, accompanied by his own damning confession. It was followed by the footage of Ian crashing through the window and beating him. The courtyard fell deathly silent. Everyone was stunned. The expressions on the faces of the Yi family were a colorful, chaotic mess. They had never dreamed that Ian's so-called evidence of the assault would be an ironclad testament to their own depravity, one that would nail them to a pillar of shame. "Well, surprised?" Ian asked, watching Victor Ye's face turn a deep shade of purple. "You disgraceful creature." Victor snarled at his son before trying to bribe the reporters to kill the story. "Settle this privately?" Samuel Su finally stood up straight, his cane thudding heavily on the ground. "My granddaughter was nearly ruined by your son, and you want to settle this privately? The Su family is not so easily bullied. If you want to settle this, then have your son kneel and apologize to my granddaughter." "You? Don't push it." Marcus Yi sputtered. "He doesn't have to kneel," Ian said, casually tossing the memory card in his hand. "Audrey, this interview can make it onto the evening crime report, right? And what if I were to provide this video to the police?" That was the last straw. Victor Yi was shaking with fury. He knew if the video got out, his family's reputation would be destroyed. He looked from his worthless son on the ground to the formidable Samuel Su and the unervingly calm Ian. Finally, through gritted teeth, he forced out the words, "Fine. I'll make him kneel." "Dad, I won't." Felix panicked. "You useless disgrace." Victor roared. He lunged forward, yanked his son up from the lounge chair, dragged him in front of Stella, and with all his strength, forced him down. "Kneel." The courtyard of the Su family home was a theater of humiliation. Victor Yi, his face a mask of fury, forced his son to his knees. Under the watchful eyes of the reporters and the stunned silence of the crowd, the heir to Xinjiang's most powerful family was made to kneel before the woman he had tried to defile, forced to choke out the words, "I'm sorry." Ian even pulled out his new phone, directing the scene with a theatrical flair. "A little straighter, Mr. Yi. An apology should look like an apology." The Yi family departed in a storm of shame and resentment. In the now quiet courtyard, Stella finally broke down, sobbing in Zheng Li's arms. Samuel Su looked at Ian, his expression a complex mix of emotions that finally settled into a long sigh. "Ian, thank you." "It's nothing," Ian said with a casual smile. "Since I'm Stella's husband now, it's my job to protect her." "Grandpa, he's not an outsider," Stella said, lifting her tear-streaked face. "He's my husband." In that moment, she forgot the contract, forgot all the calculations, feeling only a warm current flowing through her heart. Seeing the conviction in his granddaughter's eyes, Samuel Su made his decision, reaffirming the 2-week deadline he had given her. The drive back to the villa was silent. Not far from the Su estate, however, Ian slammed on the brakes. Ahead, a group of a dozen men were surrounding a small beetle. The reporter, Audrey Ouyang, was being accosted by a burly man, while her cameraman, Kevin Liu, was already on the ground. "The reporter is in trouble. I'm going to check it out," Ian said, getting out of the car. "Think you're special just because you're a reporter?" The leader of the thugs, a man called Panther, sneered, reaching a grimy hand toward Audrey's chest. Just as Audrey screamed, Panther felt his neck seized by an immense force. He was lifted off his feet, sent flying in an arc, and landed headfirst in a roadside trash can, his legs kicking wildly in the air. Ian had appeared as if from nowhere. In a flurry of motion, he dispatched the dozen thugs, leaving them crying on the ground. He learned from Panther that they had been sent by Mr. Zhao to steal the video and teach the reporter a lesson. A cold light entered Ian's eyes, and he kicked Panther back into the trash can. "Garbage like you belongs in the trash." Back in the car, Stella and Zheng Li stared at him in shock. Ian, however, acted as if nothing had happened and started the engine. At the villa, Stella looked at this man who could be thuggish one moment and reliable the next, her heart a tangle of emotions. She wanted to talk to him, to thank him properly, but was flustered when he said, "If you really want to thank me, you can use the most direct method." "What? What do you want?" she asked, taking a step back defensively. Ian shook his head with a look of mock pity. "You're so beautiful. You have everything going for you. But how can you be so slow?" "I'm talking about money, of course. A bonus, or a raise would be nice." Stella didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, she could only say irritably, "I'll owe you." The next day, Stella was still stressing over the $500 million investment. Ian watched her, shook his head, and said casually, "What's the hurry? You still have 10 days, right? I heard that in a week, the Soaring Dragon Commerce Guild is holding an investment conference in Xinjiang. They'll be choosing one company to invest in. If you're really out of options, you could try that." Stella's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. "The Soaring Dragon Commerce Guild's conference? How did you know about that?"